Hello, Cameron. Welcome into this podcast and video, YouTube video. Can you tell us shortly how you started working with dogs in general?
Thank you very much for having me. How I got into this was as a little kid. My neighbor was a gentleman who started teaching police dogs in Florida, and that had a profound effect on me. And I ended up working for him when I got older. After working for him, I ended up going into the Air Force in the U.S. military. And after doing years, which at the time I was in the Air Force, I was stationed in Germany. So it allowed me to travel Europe and see all the different dog programs. And that really made it even more passionate for me to do working dogs, police dogs, things of that nature. And then after my time in the military, I was back in Florida, had a business, did the dog business, bringing dogs in from Europe, training them, putting them with police. And then from there, got into what they call government contracting. So then I was working for, this is back in, let's say, 2009 to 2013. So at the height of the Afghanistan and Iraq wars, we were training a lot of bomb dogs. I was working for companies doing that. And then that took me to the job I had in 2014 to 2018, which was being a Navy SEAL canine instructor working for my friend's company. And then that job ended in 2018, and then from there I've had Ford Canine ever since.
Interesting. And when did you step into detection? I mean, what was your first contact with detection?
So detection came to me probably, it was before the military. It was when I was working for my friend's business. I say friend, he was like a father figure to me. While working for him and helping out not only in the bite work stuff, I was there to learn some of the detection things that they were doing. That was my first time being involved in detection. From that point, it was just part of the normal, what we call dual purpose, dogs that were trained in detection and patrol. And from that point, it was always part of what I did, but it wasn't the only thing. It wasn't until when I left the Navy SEAL program and was out on my own with my own business that I really focused specifically on detection.
Okay. And since you started working in detection, what has changed? I mean, methods, way of working?
So when I first was doing detection back when I was working for my friend, the indications that we had was only scratch indication. So the way we trained scratch indication was, it was very natural for a dog to use its feet. So it wasn't hard to get a dog to do that kind of work.
So actually it was active.
Yes.
I mean, active indication.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. So then probably, it wasn't too long after that, but when I went in the military, so let's just say that was in 1995 was when we were doing the active indication. It was a couple years later when I went in the military was doing passive indication. And that style was very much of, I would say, not make the dog, but tell the dog to sit and then pop a toy out with our hands. And then the dog would sit and learn to look at us, and we would throw the toy at the dog. Probably in the late 90s, probably close to 2000, is when it became more about having the dog focus at where the odor is at and then try to throw the toy, around or close to source to get the dog to believe that the reward came from there. It was then in 2000, I believe, 11 or 12 is where I first learned about condition reinforcer or marker training. And that's when I started making the switch from knowing that I could do more than just try to have my dog believe the toy would magically, in a sense, appear at source. But now I could tell the dog a signal, that this signal means that you will get your reward. So that helped become more efficient. So right in there's almost 3 to 4 changes that I went through, and that was just on the training method and indication aspects. There was way more that changed when it came to chemistry of odor, things that we started learning about odors, how they interacted with each other, what was thought, like, for example, we used to do the cocktail method all the time, and then realized, oh, wait a second, the dog may not take in all the odors at the same level. They may pick one better than another, and not every dog's going to pick the same one. And so we understood that it's a cleaner process to train one odor at a time to give each odor a significant value versus the mixture value. So that's one aspect. And then what do odors do? How far can they go out? How long they last? Then there was the when synthetic or pseudo odors came on the scene, those came on and we were all very excited about that. And then as time has gone by, we've realized we still have a lot more to learn about all these things. So
okay. So this brings us a little bit towards like science and science-based methods. I know you work with Dr. Hare and Dr. Hall. How science did influence your choices in regards to detection?
Yeah. So when I was with the Navy SEAL project, that's where I got to meet Dr. Brian Hare, and that was where I learned about canine cognition. And that was 100% a game changer for how I understood dogs. Many of the things that I learned in canine cognition were things I knew, but I didn't know why. Now, by doing canine cognition testing first, I now know that dog better because I understand its mind and how it solves problems, which gives me an advantage to be more efficient about my training. So then I take my detection training to match that style of dog, and then I'm better at that than I was when I would try to figure it out as we went along. So that was the big one. And then with Dr. Hall was learning more about the odor in the dog's nose. And that's where he debunked a few of the beliefs that I had about cocktail, about a bunch of things. And even still now, the research that we're doing about odor prevalence, the importance of doing blank searches and doing them more frequently and more early on in training and how important all that is. So, yeah.
Interesting. And how specifically, I mean, regarding cognition testing, how does it help you to work with your dog and dogs you train? I mean, do you have examples of success or failure in regards to cognition?
Yep. So within the Navy SEAL program, without cognition, the dogs that were selected, when we would go out and pick dogs, the traditional way, we would have, I think it was 40-something% of the dogs that we selected made it through to deployment. When we added cognition, we went to 73%. So we had a significant change because what we learned was we were able to understand that dog better, which meant we were more successful in training it. But we were also able to identify things that maybe we didn't want to deal with, so we didn't select that dog. And what I mean by that is a lot of times dogs that are very motivated and very high energy look really good on normal testing. But then when you have them do cognitive tests, they can't contain themselves. They get very worked up, very excited, bark and spin and do things. And then we realize that that's not a quality we want to have in a working dog for the work that those dogs do, which is to be very focused and quiet and diligent in their work. But what we wanted was, some mental flexibility too. So a dog that could think. So we were testing, looking at a form of intelligence. How does the dog solve problems? So this gave us, again, an advantage that we got to see that, okay, this dog has those qualities. And then when we got done training, we ended up training even faster. We had a 30% reduction in training time because of understanding them better and not wasting so much time trying this or trying that to see what works for the dog.
So it was more or less training for the trainer.
Yeah. For sure. Yeah, for sure.
And if you had to explain to like someone that wants to start detection, if you had to explain in 5 minutes how to start, where would you start, and what advice would you give her or him?
Yep. So I actually have a video on my YouTube channel that's all about that. But in short, is you need to look at disciplines that are very welcoming to somebody without military or police experience, which are usually your conservation, your bed bug detection, things of that nature. I would work with those programs. Search and rescue is a program that gets a lot of attention. And there's so many of those out there that you may not get as active as you'd want. So, but going into maybe conservation or some type of ecological or bed bug type detection, now there's gas leak and water leak and things like that. So those are all very, I would say, more open fields, even though they're smaller, but there's more opportunities there than the typical, I want to get into a drug dog handler. I want to be a bomb dog handler. Those jobs are still picked mostly based with people with security or law enforcement military experience. Doesn't mean you can't get it. It's just a little bit harder. The competition is more there. But I would get into one of the other aspects first.
Okay, and the way we would start the dog would be the same regardless the field?
What I would do is, first find out which field is looking for people.
Okay.
And then spend time with them, see what they look for, how they train, why they do what they do, because that will also help you if you decide, because maybe they don't want to take your dog, they want to take a dog that they want to train you for a dog that they have. So that has to be considered too. A lot of the places may already have a dog ready that they've already selected. They're looking for a good person who wants to handle a dog. So that's part of getting out there and seeing who has opportunities and positions and checking them out and saying, it's getting your good intelligence information before you start.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Makes sense. What would you consider the easiest part in training detection dog, and what's the hardest part?
There's no easy and there's no, it always depends on the dog in front of me.
Okay.
Some dogs are easier. They pick up things faster and understand quicker. Other dogs may not. So it doesn't matter the task. It's just the dog in front of me.
Yeah, but I see, lots of, many people focus on the hunting part, like the search part. And then they come to me and they say, oh, my dog is not indicating. And it's because, maybe not on the professional part, but on the sport part, we love to see our dogs searching. So we spend a lot of time into making them searching.
Yep.
And most of the time we don't really train the indication. So, this is for me, like in sport, this is probably the most difficult part for sport people to train.
Is the indication part.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's also a very debated part because certain programs don't care, don't want to promote any indication whatsoever. They just, whatever the dog does naturally, and there's a good purpose to that. And then there's the side that says, I want a specific type of behavior when I find something, and there's value to that. So it's always, I have to look at things as what is the trade-off? What do I get or what do I lose by doing whatever it is? In this case, indication. The dog that it's in front of me, maybe it's been a pet for its whole life, and it knows certain behaviors get certain things. So I may not want to teach a indication per se because they just will go through the cycle of behaviors to get what they want, and I may just reinforce whatever it does naturally at odor and use that. Now, other dogs who are very active, like there was a spaniel in here today, super active, searching. It has an indication, and that helps because it shows you when it goes all over the place and all of a sudden locks up and stays still, you can now tell there's something there. Yeah. So on a dog like that. So you would use like the natural,
natural genetic ability of the dog to build the indication?
So...
Or... would you shape it, or would you?
I'm still going to shape it. So obviously, in the detection world, there's right now, I would say, two main types of indications, which is going to be a sit or a lock up and freeze. Those are the number one, number two, and there's different reasons for that. So certain breeds, like pointers, they naturally do this. Some of the spaniels naturally do this. So I would stay with what they naturally do. Yeah. But when you look at a lock up or a freeze, it doesn't ask very much of the dog either. So when the dog is working, it just stands still, which can look very similar to when they're standing still sniffing something. Whereas the sit requires them to do something. The downside for some dogs could be that they may pick up, depending on the dog, that the sit behavior could get them something. So then some dogs, through inference, say, okay, how about I sit? Or they look at their handler, see their handler do something, go, oh, that means I should sit. It all comes down to, at the end of the day, the clarity of your training. What are you reinforcing for? How, maintaining that criteria no matter what happens. And what is the procedure? I'm hunting, I find odor. This is what I do when I find odor, whatever this is. If it's sit still or if it's sitting, freezing, whatever it is, I have to be consistent, and that's what I reward for. But when I reward for sometimes freezing, sometimes sitting, sometimes freezing, or freezing looking back at the handler, if there's a multiple things that the dog is getting reinforced for, it's not really clear what is the one, which is why handlers begin to struggle, because they go, well, this time it did this. And this time it did this. Well,
there's
the confusion.
Dog constantly changing their indication behavior.
Yep, because they've been reinforced for all of those things. So that's one of the struggles. This is why having a clear defined, let's say like a sit, can be very helpful for a team. But for another team, the sit could be very detrimental. They don't want to do that. So I can't say one or the other. But what I can say is whatever I choose is what I have to stick with. Yeah. That's the important part.
Okay. Now that you have been spending a little bit of time in Europe and of course like USA, which is your country, what is the big difference of working detection dogs? And when I say working, I mean like professional and sport part. And as you know, you have seen both police dog in our country and also sport dogs. So just tell me, like, what are the differences that you observed? The
biggest difference between the U.S. and Europe is in Europe, you guys your culture has been very much about dogs. So dogs are a part of going to the store. Dogs are part of your everyday life. You guys go for walks. So your willingness to invest in time in education of both human and dog is much more than the United States. The United States is how fast can I train the dog? How fast can I get a title? Because all my friends are getting titles, so I want to go when they go compete. There's also a mentality that I don't know when I'm going to get a trial, so I'm going to put in for every single one, and they get into every single one, and they may not be ready for those yet. Over here, it's much more the mentality of we do that when we're ready. We put in our time and train. And it may mean, like, especially on the law enforcement side, the police canines here train for a year or more before they go operational. United States, the only thing better than an 8-week school is a 6-week school. And what's better than a 6-week school? A 4-week school. If they can get it done, if they could do it overnight, they would pick overnight. If I could show up, run my dog, get a certificate, walk away, they would do that if you allowed them.
The fastest would be the best.
That's the mentality most times. And I won't say it's a byproduct so much of the canine units, but more of the law enforcement agencies themselves, the administration, because there's so few of police officers available, they don't want their people gone for very long.
Okay.
The second part is they've gotten away for so long with not training the amount of time that they needed to, that, well, we've done it before, let's do it again, versus saying, you know what, we spend so many years working on problems that if we invested our time early on, we might not have some of these problems. So
interesting.
Yeah.
So last year when you were here for the first time, you were curious about our police officers, and because they were getting their dogs as puppies, and training and raising them since they were, very young age. Now that you have raised quite a few dogs and trained them in detection, what are differences you've seen by buying like an adult dog, training him, or getting a puppy and training him?
I will do a puppy all day long, because everything that's in that dog, I put into that dog. That dog didn't come to me at 10 months old or a year old, and I don't know what its history was, what things they did with it, all of that stuff I don't know. So by raising this dog, I know everything about this dog. I understand it. I built it all myself. So now, if there's anything that goes wrong, I know what it is. I can fix it better because if I cause the problem, maybe what did I do? Oh, I did this. Okay. But I also can avoid things because I know this puppy. Let's say, for example, I get a lot of now working Cocker Spaniels. I know if a hunter has them until a few months old, they may have already seen birds as part of their training. So they develop habits that I don't want for detection for me. But if I get this dog as a puppy, I can avoid that. So it saves me from dealing with things like the birds, dogs focusing on that, whether it be a pointer, spaniel, Labrador. All these dogs I raise from puppies, I'm able to cater them to the skills and the things that I want, not me fixing things I didn't want because before I got them, they did these other training steps.
Interesting. And talking about puppy, what is the best age to start detection with a puppy or with a dog? Is there a specific age, or can we just start training them whatever? So
everybody, I think both sides do this, Europe and America. How soon can we start? I really want to do something. And I think we're better off letting the puppy be a puppy for a while and letting the puppy have puppy experiences, developing, growing, being in the environments, doing different things, and not worrying about detection yet. Detection will happen. I can do things to develop skills, like do some fun hunting games with my dog. Like I said, going in environments that helps them be confident no matter where they go is more important than trying to put odor on them so soon.
Okay.
Because they have, if I've picked the right dog and the genetics are there, I have the right tool to work with. I don't need to rush through it because the downside is, as we all know, puppies go through different developmental stages. And maybe I'm doing odor, but then I didn't pay attention or didn't know that was going through a fear period. And next thing I know, inadvertently, I created them to be scared of something because I want to do this detection. I want to have fun with it, not knowing
and then
that
fear is part of detection. Okay.
So.
Because I know that some professional, they imprint the puppies, very young, like they work them a lot from 8 weeks until 4, maybe 5 months. And then because they go into that fear phase or becoming adolescent, they stop and then start again.
Yep.
So you wait.
I wait. Like I said, I'll do we call it skill development stuff. So we do lots of playing, communication, things I'm going to build for detection later on, but it's not related to odor.
Okay.
It's learning what I would call the vocabulary, like learning how to speak a language. I'm teaching them right now ABCs, but we're not saying a word yet. I don't do the say the word until I got all the ABCs right. So I don't have to rush for those. And those, if a fear period happens while we're doing some of those things, I'm able to not have odor associated to it.
Yeah.
And what research has shown us so far is there hasn't been any real significant advantage by starting a dog on odors really early. And then the different groups they've done this with, the statistics behind it was it's not that much benefit. Like sometimes some dogs did a little bit better, but some dogs didn't. So there was not a big advantage to it. So if you're looking at risk versus reward, I'd rather not risk something happening to my dog early on that ruins its ability or creates something I have to work through on top of my training.
Yeah, right. Okay. And when when you start with an adult dog or young dog, how long does it take to have that dog ready for the field? I know it can depend, but what's the average? And how many? Because we know that when the dog is certified, that it doesn't mean that's the best dog in the field. So in your experience, how long, how many years does the dog need to gain enough experience to be like top dog?
So like you said, it depends on what the odor discipline is to know how long I have to train. So I would say almost no matter what, I would spend a year doing training no matter what the discipline is.
Okay.
A good solid year of building a good foundation of that skill.
So people offering dog like train for 12 weeks for you. It's
and it's
solid as.
And it's been hard for me. I've had a business where I've trained dogs and I do it for 12 to 16 weeks. And then it goes for 4 more weeks with a handler. And again, because of the culture of the United States, I want more time, but they're like, nope, sorry. So then back to your point, well, then now they're out there working. I always tell those handlers, you have at least another year of time before you guys are kind of skilled at what you do. And if they don't do a lot of training, that skill goes away. So again, if this is the ideal situation, I'm going to train for a year, and then it's usually by 3 years old. The dog is, about 3 years old. It has seen enough different ways of searching for the odor that it gives it a good skill set to be proficient. But usually your best detection dogs are between 4 and 5 years old. They've seen enough. They've gotten through a lot of experiences. They know how to work the wind, the environment. It's just like us. Yeah.
Experience.
A teenager isn't going to be as good as a 30-year-old, and a 30-year-old isn't as good as sometimes a 45 or 50-year-old. So
makes sense. Yeah. I know you're more on the professional side of detection, but how do you explain that detection as a sport has, exploded in USA? I know it's coming here too. And do you have an idea what it became so popular?
People wanted something to do with their dogs that also was good for every breed. So there was no restrictions on breeds. There was no breed advantage. Because certain sports started turning into breed advantage. So like agility became a lot of border collies or herding type dogs. Dock diving became, went through different breeds. It started off with Labrador, then it became Malinois, now it's Whippet. So detection or nose work of a sport became popular because you could do it with all kinds of breeds and all different personality types. And I say personality types being dogs that are a bit more nervous to dogs that are very confident. It was a much more open and encompassing program. And for handlers, if the handlers had some type of, let's say they were older, they couldn't move as easier, this was still a sport that they could do, and they were able to get out with their dogs, which was important for both the human and the dog.
Yeah. That makes sense, and that's right. I mean, as you can do it with like any age of dog, any type of dog.
Yep. Of
course, it's for everyone.
Yes.
Have you already seen sporting dogs that you would consider taking into a professional program?
Oh, yeah.
Like a dog that you say, oh, wow, I want this dog.
Yeah, I've seen that more than a few times in the sport world. Like the people I saw the dog they have, the dog's a really good dog. I would take it in a minute to go do professional detection.
And
so
what breed would
it's been a mixture. I've seen a golden retriever, which I wouldn't have thought, but that one I would have worked for sure. Plenty of Labradors, Spaniels, mixed breed dogs. I've seen all kinds. So I wouldn't even necessarily say it's a particular breed. It's just I see a dog that's got skills.
Yeah. Okay, good. You told me that you wanted to start something new, mondio detection. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah. So mondio detection, instead of being a sport program like having titles and all this kind of stuff, it's a event. So think of it like the fitness things like Tough Mudder or things where you go and just do this event and you can win prizes at this event. So mondio detection is all about how well the dog works the environment, how well the handler makes sure the dog works the environment, the dog's indication to odor, whatever that indication is, and how well the handler can read that indication. So the environment is the challenge because we will set up as trial officials the environment to be challenged. The dog will have to maybe climb up something, go under something, go through something, stand in something, whatever it is, to tell you it found odor. And can the dog handle that distraction or that difficulty to say, hey, odor's right here? So that is a challenge. The good thing is there's no time challenge. We're not seeing how fast you go. We're going to give you a time. You have, let's say, 10 minutes to search this area, but you can take as long as you want. So that we also look for to see how thorough you are. Are you running around the field and don't know where you're at, or you're not searching the space area properly? You're running from one room to the other room, but you missed two other rooms because you got excited. We're looking for little things like that. So the judging scores are going to be, like I said, the indication to odor, how strong or prevalent it is. Can the handler read it and be confident in what they call? And then you guys searching the space and the dog dealing with whatever the environmental distractor is.
Yeah.
So those, and then the cool thing is everybody's odor. So this is open to all detection disciplines, not just a sport one. So you can have drug dogs there, bomb dogs there, gun dogs there, the
Bed
sport
bugs.
dogs, bed bugs, and everybody's odors is in the same area. The other cool thing is if your discipline, let's say if you're a bed bug handler, and your bed bug teams or the bed bugs aren't running right now, you can go watch the drug dogs run. You can go watch the bomb dogs run. So it allows people to actually watch and have fun, which right now in almost all detection sports, you're not allowed to watch anybody go. So you don't get to cheer each other on, see how it goes. This is meant to be fun. This is meant to be exciting. We'll have music. You can have like all kinds of things to make it more enjoyable. But it's also about cheering each other on and watching and learning from each other, because you guys will see how different dogs do in these different disciplines and with these different environmental challenges.
Yeah.
Because in the real world, we never know what we're going to face. Every environment's different. And that's what mondio detection will bring is you go to a mondio competition in California or you go to the mondio competition in Switzerland. The environment's going to be totally different. You never know. It's not going to be, it's always going to be interiors or exteriors. No, we may have one that's half interior, half exterior. It may have a water area. It may have this. It is all just to get you so that way you can't train for a specific thing. You have to train for a little bit of everything.
Yeah, so it's going to be more like fun and competition, but very close to the real life.
Correct. The things that we
detection
deal.
Yeah.
The things we deal with in real life detection, which is maybe there could be another animal in the space. Maybe there's a goat in the field off to the side or something. I mean, it'll be as creative as we can be, but also safely. We're not going to do anything that's unsafe, but we want to make it challenging that you guys go through what the professional dogs go through. And then those professional dogs that are there are on the same field as the sport dogs. So now everybody's judged and competing the same way.
And because I told you that I really love this idea, I hope to have you back in 2023 to introduce this in Switzerland or maybe France, close by Switzerland. I don't know yet. But for sure you will come back. And talking about coming back, it's not you that is coming back in February. It's Natalie.
Yes.
For the
Cognition instructor course and Cognition, both of them together in one.
Yeah. So, and you will be back.
Both of us will be back in May
for the
detection camp. Yep.
So basically, it's going to be a 5-day detection camp where we'll be doing mostly practice. Just a little bit of lecture, but it's more. It's talking.
More being out working the dogs. We'll do very little talking or lecture. It's going to be groups working with Natalie, groups working with me, and then switching each day, and then going different environments that you have set up for us.
Perfect. So looking forward to seeing you next year. And thank you very much for this interview.
Thank you for having me.
Enjoy the next days in Switzerland.
Absolutely. You'll get lots of good videos of it, I'm sure.
Perfect.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Yes.